All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I'm really excited about my guest today. She actually has a really awesome YouTube channel that I want to shout out. So I'm going to make sure I link that below this video, but she has a great story. She's been carnivore for almost 3 years, still going strong. But if you would go ahead and just introduce everybody in my audience, if they haven't heard of you, don't know who you are, just tell a little bit about who you are.
Hey, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on. I really enjoy this opportunity, and I always have enjoyed your content. And we had a great conversation when we last spoke a long while ago. I think it was early last winter,
Yeah.
and actually, my life has changed dramatically since then. So it's good to have this opportunity to catch up. Um, so about me, how I got here. Oh my gosh. It was a very long journey. I started out on keto, actually, like a lot of people. I was in 2015, I went to my brother's wedding, and it just was a weekend of there were just so many challenges due to my weight. And I finally, hit that moment that, when you get that incredible motivation and you're just like, I cannot live like this anymore. And that weekend, I just accepted that I have no idea what I'm doing. And clearly, I have not been able to manage my weight on my own. And I just am going to, go and find a program and just stick to it and stop like second guessing it. And, it's from there. Basically, I got started and I started going with keto, and I did really well with it. And I had done it in the past. I think in the 90s, I had come across an Atkins book. It was like the fourth iteration of it. So I was not totally unfamiliar with it. And I did remember that even then, like I felt like I did pretty well with it. I enjoyed it. I felt good with it. So, but at the time, I couldn't imagine a life without candy. So it's like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But this time around, I was like, let me really dive into it. And I really was curious about why it worked. And there's so much more science available, even in like 2015 versus back in the late 90s. So I like dove into YouTube. I watched every scientific presentation. I watched everything I could find. And even then, like, there wasn't a whole lot of information at that point. But I consumed all of it, and I really started to understand what was going on. I did start to hear about the carnivore diet, and in fact, I had heard about it, and I had come across like a message board. Whatever the group was that Charles Washington had, probably
Mm.
back in like 2008 or even seven. I was a member of it for a little while, and I was like, I want to do this, but I just cannot wrap my head around vegetables not being good for you. And so I was like most Americans trying, to do the things that we were told to do. So, I made every effort to eat the rainbow. I tried to, I mean, I never could get to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables.
No.
That was absurd. But, I would aim for 5, and I'd feel good if I made it there. I tried to include, nuts and healthy fats and eat mostly turkey and fish and all of those things. And so, it was hard. And then at a certain point, I was going through a difficult time with a job that I had, and I just kind of let it all go. And I basically put on, I mean, I had been steadily gaining weight over the years, but at that point, I put on like 30 or 40 pounds. And so, it was, it was just very difficult. And so I carried that weight with me. And then, I kind of got to that point at my brother's wedding. So I finally, decided to buckle down. And as I got into keto, like the first couple of weeks was truly, truly difficult. I mean, when people talk about the cravings and
Yeah.
all of the keto flu, like I went through it all, and I basically, sat in my chair at work and just was like, I'm just holding on for dear life. It was really white knuckling it. I used to have a habit where, come 2, 3 o'clock, I would take a circuit around the building, and I knew everybody who had like a bowl of chocolate or candy on their desk. And so, I had a circuit that I would take, and I didn't want to, hit the same people every day. So I had multiple circuits. So when that first week, I was like, come 2 o'clock, it was like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yes.
Um, but I really, I stuck with it. And I like to tell people, you really have to defend your health and what is important to you. So I worked in an office where people, like, the boss loved to find out everybody's favorite donut, and then once a week or once every 2 weeks bring in a dozen donuts with everyone's specific favorite donut. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
God. And or people would make brownies and bring them in. And so, in the beginning, I used to just like slam my door, and I'd see them coming, and I'd be like, I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to know about it, just leave me alone. So people, were understandably offended and didn't like it. And then but eventually, I started losing weight, and then people were like, oh, and they really started to like turn around and support my decisions. When my birthday came around, instead of getting a cake like they normally do, they got one of those fruit, creations, like fruit
Yeah.
on a stick.
Yes.
Right. So it's still not keto, but they were making an effort, and I really appreciated, their effort there. Um, so I felt like I had to train the people around me as well as train myself to follow, this way of eating. And so, eventually I, made it to my goal. And but I continued to hear about this carnivore diet, and I had nagging health problems that some improved when I went on keto, and but not all of them did. But I'd hear these stories where people who are like, oh, I went keto and my arthritis went away, and oh, I
Yes.
went keto, and now like everything is perfect. And I was like, yeah, that hasn't happened to me.
Yeah.
So I kept hearing Amber O'Hearn, give her talks, and I still thought that, carnivore was crazy. But there's something about her. She is so smart and and thoughtful about the things that she does, or what she says, that I was kind of like, if she's giving this value, there must be something of value here. Like, you can't, she's not just like a fly by night person that you can be like, oh, whatever. So I finally decided in 2017, the end of 2017, to give it a try, and I was going through some significant health challenges at that point as well.
Mhm.
And trying it, like, I mean, it within like 2 days, I mean, it was all of a sudden like I could breathe. It was such a powerful kick for me. I mean, and that wasn't even the height of the healing, but I felt so much better even that first, 2 days, that I was like, this is it. I mean, this is how I'm
You
going to
had
eat the rest of
asthma,
my life.
right?
Asthma, eczema, and allergies. I also was at the time really struggling with horrible anemia. So anemia combined with asthma, it
Yeah.
means that like I'm
Awful.
getting no oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad. So I felt so much better that that was it. So I knew at that point, I didn't think that I was going to stick to it without ever falling off, but I knew that that was always going to be home base. And then, I might do other things. So, so that's kind of how I started. And then, but it's like, it is an unusual thing. And so it was hard for me to declare to the people in my life, this is what I'm doing. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm doing this experiment,
Yeah.
but months later, it's like people are like, sorry, you're not done with this experiment. Like, when is it over? So then I had to admit. And then, I decided to, I guess it was in August, maybe, or June of 2018, that I started my Instagram channel, mostly just to figure out what to eat.
Yeah.
I felt like, even though, people say, here's what you eat, it's like, what does that look like on my plate?
Yeah.
How much am I supposed to eat? I grew up with a grandmother who was like, you eat a starch, a vegetable, and a meat. Like, that's what your plate should look like. So, when I first started, it's like, so, I have the meat in the center. Do I have two other kinds of meats as sides, or, like, what? So it was really helpful to just start visualizing my plate and looking at other and following other people and seeing their plates and seeing what people did. And so that's kind of where it started. And then I think a lot of people appreciated that kind of content because they asked me the same questions, like, what do I eat? What do
Yes.
I actually do? Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go. That's the whole story.
So you did keto. You lost how much weight doing keto? Was it like 80 pounds or something? Wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
then you're like,
And
okay, now when you were on keto, did you feel like you were still kind of craving sugar and having uh, cravings for things that maybe you experienced like a lot of relief once you went carnivore? Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, in during keto, I think in the very, very beginning, like I cut out all things sweet. So I had nothing sweet, no artificial sweeteners, no berries, and nothing and no alcohol.
Mm,
So I think when I was doing that on keto, I did not have a lot of cravings. But then over time I started adding in, blueberries, and I left it at blueberries, and then I added in, dark chocolate, and,
mhm,
I made every effort to find the darkest chocolate
mhm.
and the most pure and blah, 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 and all of that, and unicorn tears. But it was still, it was still a challenge. I mean, there was definitely a craving. And so what I did at the time was buy like the most expensive chocolate that I could find.
Mm.
So if I ate it all, like that was all I could afford for until the next paycheck. And so like that's kind of the way I rationalize it. So I would break it up and I'd have like one small square or two small squares, and and that would be kind of it. But yeah, I mean, it was a constant um push pull, but I was still in the old mind frame of like calories in, calories out, and sort of regular dieting. So I was tracking all my food, I was counting my calories, and I was still, I was definitely an if it fits your macros. Like I was, trying to be healthy about it, but
Yeah.
if it fit in. So my aim was to hit around 25 grams of carbs a day. Um, as long as I didn't go over 50, I considered it a win. And I usually came in somewhere between 30 and 40. So, and I counted all carbs. I didn't do net carbs. So, yeah, so that was what I did. But yeah, I mean, there were always cravings there. The other thing that I didn't do at the time was quit eating dairy.
Mm,
And I have since discovered that I have, very strong reactions to dairy. And so when I went carnivore, a lot of things improved, but I still had my trouble with asthma.
mm.
And then, I kept hearing people say, quit dairy, see, maybe it bothers you. So I quit it. And then I mean, it was dramatic, the improvement. And so, I was planning on quitting it for like 3 weeks and then testing it. And then, I don't know, something happened. It was about 10 days. And my mom had some of those, Parmesan crisps, the
Mm,
wisps, or
yeah.
whatever those are called. So I had like three. I mean, it was like half a serving. And then within an hour, I needed my inhaler. And then I realized I
Wow.
hadn't used my inhaler in the previous 10 days. And so it was like a dramatic, almost immediate improvement. And I was very upset about that, as most people.
Yeah.
So I spent quite some time, testing it over the next few weeks. And I kind of looked at my inhaler and I was like, okay, I have so many puffs of my inhaler and so much ounces of cheese left. Let's see how this works out. And I tested it 4 times, and each and every time, like within a few hours, I needed my inhaler. So
Wow.
the last time being, I had some cheese at a late dinner, and I went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night. Like I was having a dream that I needed my inhaler, and I woke up and I needed my inhaler, and I was like, okay,
Wow.
as an adult, like my job is to keep myself alive. And so if I'm doing something that I know is causing a problem, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
It's so hard. I feel like dairy is the one thing that carnivores, and it's so controversial because
yeah.
it is so delicious, but it's so addictive. And for me, whenever I do dairy, I have all kinds of weird stuff. The first thing for me usually
Hmm.
is eczema. I'll get like
Hmm.
a really small patch of eczema. And then if I push it further, I'll have some sort of inflammation somewhere. the last time
Mm-hmm.
my ankle swelled up, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I waking up in pain? Like my ankle, I have an old injury, and I woke up in pain and my ankle was swollen. And the only thing I had done was have some dairy that day. And I was like, oh, this is so, it's frustrating, because it's so delicious. But like you said, it's like you're an adult, it's your job to take care of your body, keep yourself alive. So yeah, but I love that you figure that out, and then you're like, okay, well, this is just something that it's not good for me because I want to breathe and I want to stay alive.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, one of my favorite treats when I was keto was I'd take let's see, 2 or 4 tablespoons of heavy cream
Mm.
and put it in a bowl with 2 tablespoons of blueberries. So I
Oh,
had, condensed it down to, a snack that I think had like 3 or 4 grams of carbs in it. And, that was my evening sweet treat. I'd have that or chocolate. I would not allow myself to have both.
yeah.
So, and I used heavy cream in my scrambled eggs. I used goat cheese in my scrambled eggs. I mean, cheese was throughout my whole keto game.
Yeah.
So, and I do tell people like, you can lose weight. You can still achieve that aspect of your goal, but if optimal health is what you're looking for, that's a different question. And that's not the same thing as losing weight.
Yeah, and that's such a huge thing. I've heard you talk about on your channel before. I come up against that a lot. I know that you have lots
Mhm.
of women that kind of look to you and get advice from you. And this whole weight loss thing is such a huge topic. And it's almost kind of like disheartening because, I'll see women go carnivore and maybe they get their cycle back regularly. Maybe they start sleeping. Maybe they have like the thing with you and the asthma, like they can breathe again. They have these amazing things that happen, but because they're not seeing the scale move, they want to give up. And so what's your advice to somebody who's just like so weight loss focused, and like this is just conversation I love to have with other women because it's like it's so frustrating, and I deal with it a little bit of myself too. It's like, oh, I'm not as thin as I was when I, did this diet or that diet, but I have so many great health benefits. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to remind myself and other people too, like health is what really matters. And I try to think about all the things that I couldn't do when I wasn't healthy, both heavier and also really couldn't breathe. And that's got to be, the driving force or the reminder for myself. That living the ultimate goal here is to be able to live life and do the things that I'm really excited to do and have the physical ability and stamina to do them. And I have seen so many people whose lives have shrunk because of that. And even at my highest weight, I didn't have the energy to do anything. And I live in New York City, like at the time before the whole world
Yeah.
shut down. There was a ton of stuff to do. There were places to go and events to go to, and it was just all I could do to drag myself to work in the morning and get myself home. And I could not like go out and about and do all this kind of stuff. So, for me, like in the end, it was just like, I really want more energy. I just don't want to be so exhausted. And one of the things that I loved about keto was long before I lost much weight. I think I had lost like 8 pounds, but even with that, I was already so much more energetic and was in so much less pain, no more joint pain, and I took the subway to work. So walking up and down stairs was a normal thing for me. I live in a walk up. So all of that was incredibly painful before. And so long before I lost much weight, that stuff went away and I started being able to go out and hang out and like engage with people and meet new people and have more broader experiences. So, that is super important. And the other thing that I did, I don't know if anybody, I mean, this may not even be useful at this point since so many people are working from home, but when I started losing weight, there was this company that just started that was called I think it was called Gwynny Bee. I don't know if they still exist, but basically it was like Netflix but clothes. So you
Uh-huh.
pay a set amount of money each month and then you get a certain number of items at one time, and then when you're done wearing them you send them back, they dry clean
Uh-huh.
them, and they send you something else. So at the time I thought this is so weird, but then I was like, well, maybe this would be good. And so I did it. And because I was losing weight, each month I needed new sizes. And it was great to not have to buy new clothes all the time or feel like, I couldn't, like I couldn't invest in how I looked. And so at no matter what size I was, like I felt cute, I
Mhm.
had clothes that were new, or at least new to me, and they were cute and they were different. And, people used to always be like, God, I wish I had your closet. You have amazing clothes and what amazing style. And I'm like, oh, if only you knew. Um, so, but I what I do tell people is, I mean, no matter what your means, like do your best to like really look good every day, because that's going to impact your mood and how you feel, and impacts how people engage with you, and all of that is part of overall health, like your mental health, your outlook, your physical health. All of that is really important. And what weight you are at any given moment is that's not as important.
Yeah.
So that was a very long and roundabout way
No,
of
I love
saying
it.
feel good about yourself.
Well, it's so important. And I feel like people have really been struggling and suffering more since the pandemic. I just bought myself a bunch of clothes because I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't have clients to see, but who's to say I can't wear like a nice sweater and a nice pair of slacks? Like, even if I'm not going anywhere, it just makes me feel better and happier. And that, I think this year for most of us, we have really reevaluated so many things in our life and cut out things, hopefully, that are bringing us down. And for me, it's like if I'm going to walk around my house in yoga pants and sweats all the time, I'm going to be a lot more prone to overeat. I'm going to be a lot more prone to just be depressed. And so I think that's like beautiful advice for anybody on a journey, and just to like love the body that you're in now and dress the body that you have now. um yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So put it all on.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
makeup, all the things.
Yeah, just
I
do.
know. I do love sweatpants, but I do kind of feel like they can send a strong message. Like I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, I
Doing
mean,
any of it.
I do have my sweatpant days. I'm not going to play like I don't, but it
Hmm.
just some for me, like I have to make myself get dressed, and that's just part of, even though I have nowhere to go, like it's just
Yeah.
important to feel good. Um, so I wanted to talk really quickly, like before we turn on the camera, we were talking a bit about just taking sugar off the table and like the whole mental freedom thing, because I think that once you do carnivore, if you have it, especially if you have a history of like food addiction, sugar addiction, like I raise both hands to that, you experience something different on carnivore. And a lot of people will say, oh, you're on this like restrictive diet. Like, that's so restrictive. How do you do that? But for me, it's like, actually, this is like the most free that I've ever felt around food. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that and your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my approach is that, sugar is a drug and it causes an actual change in my brain. It's
Mm.
not just like, oh, this tastes good. I love it. I want more. It's my brain lights up when I have it. And so, I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to drink alcohol. Like, substances affect us. And I was absolutely addicted to cigarettes. So, I know what that feeling feels like when you're feeling bad, you're mad, whatever. And then, cigarette just solves all of that for the moment. And then of course the problem is still there.
Yep.
So, that's how I feel like sugar affected me. And, actually the really great thing I think about carnivore is it really clarifies what is the problem. I think before carnivore, especially if you have allergies or you have this health problem, that health problem, like, you go on a million diets, or, like the AIP like diet
Mhm.
or the Candida diet. Like they're like, don't eat this cheese, but you
Yes.
can eat a little of that cheese, and don't eat this vinegar, but eat a little of that one, and don't eat this, but eat a little of this. And so there's like constant huge lists of things that you've got to wade through and figure out. And once you go on carnivore, you understand, oh, all of that is sugar.
Mhm.
All of it. So there's no distinction, and so now I understand, at least for me, and I see, for a lot of people, there's no difference between 2 pounds of cherries, 6 pack of beer, a bag of M&Ms, and a loaf of bread. All of these things affect me the same way, even
Mhm.
if they taste different, present different, and have different, halos or pitchforks next to them.
Yeah.
um so that allowed me to really be able to actually cut them out. And when you actually cut out all of the substance, to which you're addicted, like there's definitely, a withdrawal period. But once
Yeah.
you get through that, you are finally able to begin to start the healing process and begin to start living life on its own terms and addressing, finding better tools
Yeah.
to deal with problems. I realized that looking back on my childhood, I mean, I've been, crazy for candy since, forever.
Yeah.
And that was my always my toolkit for dealing with anything difficult. Um, and I think, and actually I looking back, I also came to understand that, I used a variety of substances.
Mhm.
So when I was smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, I actually didn't eat that much sugar because the nicotine and the alcohol
Yes.
was hitting
Yep.
hitting those things.
Yep.
And then when I decided to stop drinking so much, I would eat more candy and more cigarettes. Or when I would quit smoking, then the other two would rise. So
Yep.
it was just this constant, balancing. And when I finally went carnivore, I quit vaping nicotine and quit alcohol and coffee, and cheese, quit everything. It was like, oh my God, like I can't deal with all of this. I have nothing,
Yeah.
no crutch,
Yes.
nothing.
Yep.
And it was a very, very clarifying experience. Um, and one that I am still growing and learning with. So so I always had a hard time though on carnivore because I was very addicted, and so I would go periods without having anything sweet, and then I would have something sweet, or I might fall off the diet. And so and it would take me a couple of days to get back on, and so on. So I had these push pull moments, and it's really hard, if you can't get a longish stretch in there, you're going to just have cravings all the time.
Mhm.
And so I have people tell me, oh, I did really well, and then this happened, and then I'll do 3 days of carnivore and then eat something, and 2 days of carnivore, and then I'll have a little of this. And then, and so that's what ends up, I think, happening when you start to have some of these things. And for me, that happened even with artificial sweetener. So I
Yes.
might go months. My favorite gum was Dentine Fire. And yeah, and I really loved it. But some days I would go through 2 packs of this and I'm like, there's something wrong here. Like
Yeah.
this is not working. So I finally went to somebody who deals with sugar addiction, and went through like a couple of sessions with her, and I had such amazing success at that point. Like it was a 3 session thing, and I've got to have her on and interview her
Oh
on my
yeah.
channel because
Please
she's
do.
awesome. But the first session, we did some work, and I was still eating sugar at that point. Well, the gum. I know
Yeah.
this is like all over sugarless gum, but
I
still, it
so
was
get it
important to
though.
me.
Like I
Yeah,
so get this conversation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first week I was still eating it. The second week we had our session, and I had had a piece of gum before, and I still had more in the pack. And after the session, like I just knew I was never going to eat it again.
Mm.
And I didn't. And there were no cravings. That's what was so different this time. It didn't destroy me to say no. It didn't
Mhm.
take every ounce of
Yeah.
self-control. And self-control and willpower is like a muscle, and it's strong in the morning, and by the end of the evening it's really weak.
Mm.
So, and every decision you make every day, like that takes a little piece of it. So willpower is only going to get you so far, when you're trying to control things. So you really have to find another way to kind of to manage these behaviors. And so working with her actually really, really helped me uh to to deal with it. And so that session, like I got it. Something clicked and I got it. And I understood that this is not for me. And then, and also I think the science helps me a lot too. I mean, to know that, at any given moment when you're healthy, you have only a teaspoon of sugar moving around through your bloodstream. Like that's all the whole body needs to, like, at any given moment to deal with life, unless you're sprinting from, a tiger, which doesn't happen very often these days. So understanding that, like the first time I heard that, it was like, so wait, then how are we supposed to fit in all of these M&Ms? And then it was like, oh man, I guess we're not. Like
Right.
this is not for us. And so, I'm really, really starting to get that, like, these are not foods. These are, um, substances that are, devoid of all nutrition and actually really, really harmful.
Mhm.
And they're not food.
Yeah.
They're not food. And so they're not meant for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's, I know you've had Dr. Sivas on your channel before. I've had him on a few times, and it's just people get very triggered by this whole conversation about sugar, and our bodies are supposed to run on glucose and it's survival and this, that, and the other. And it's like you and I are sitting here saying we're doing fine, we're healthy, we're actually thriving, and our brain is not constantly hijacked by getting that sugar out. And something as simple as like gum, you know, can continue that hijacking process. So, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. I'm doing carnivore and I'm still craving sugar. And then I'll ask, like, okay, well, are you like chewing gum? Are you putting sweetener in your coffee? Are you drinking diet drinks? Like, that stuff can make you still depend on sugar, have that chemical addiction, and then continue those thoughts in your mind. I don't know about you, but I even have like a charcoal toothpaste. It doesn't taste good. I don't even have regular toothpaste in my house anymore because the toothpaste, I won't lick an envelope. Like I'm that crazy. I'm like giving it to my husband, like, please lick this. I don't even want anything to do with this. Cause it's like once you
mhm.
break that addiction, you don't want to, it's like for you probably like smoking, like you don't want to go and buy that pack of cigarettes because it's going to kind of take you back down that road where you're just in shackles to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm like
Yeah.
that with alcohol. Like I'm very open about, I've had a problem with alcohol. I've been in recovery for alcohol for 11 years. I'm right now 4 years and some change away from alcohol, and I know if I have, because I took a break before. I decided I'd have like a drink because I was having some hard days, months, weeks, all that stuff. And then I thought a glass of wine's not going to kill me. And it took me a year before I
Yeah.
was able to stop drinking again. And I had to have help. And sugar is like the same for, it's taken me
Yeah.
a while to get to that place where I'm like, I'm sure you look at food and cigarettes, the sugar in the cigarettes, they're, for me, the alcohol and the sugar are in the same group. It's like
Yeah.
it's gonna just make my life a very miserable, unhappy place. And I'm not interested at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I remind myself that it's an instantaneous feeling bad because that high from sugar is like 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
then immediately, I also feel my blood sugar rising through the roof. And
Yes.
then I feel horrible afterwards. And it takes days to get back to, that great vibe you were in before. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty immediate negative. And so I have to keep reminding myself that as well. But yeah, but I get it, but then on the other side of this, and I do have a lot of people tell me this too, like, I just need something,
Yeah.
like, how do I now deal with life?
Yeah.
And, you certainly, I mean, we all have, our stresses and our challenges to deal with, some more than others. Um, but it's like, now you have to deal with like being mad at somebody, and now you just got to sit with the feelings.
Yeah.
So that I still struggle with. Like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
So, um, and I don't, I've like bought books and,
Yeah.
looked at the videos and all of that. And there just seems to be no other answer than just sit with it. And you
Yeah.
just got to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
I agree 100%. And it's like, I'm carnivore yogi because the yoga aspect and like that self-care aspect has been survival for me. First with not drinking one day at a time, I've had to have recovery meetings. That's why I love that you've created this community on your YouTube channel and a safe space for people to go, because we need that. People need that community aspect. They need to have somewhere they can go and talk and be supported and felt heard. Because when you take away the sugar and you take away, the crutches that we would always use to get through life, you're left with all the stuff you were trying to stuff down for all those years. And I've just started doing these groups. I did one in November, and I just started the December one today, where I'm really trying to help people. Here's a technique you can do to meditate. Here are 5 or 6 different breathing techniques that I teach them. I brought my teacher who does EFT, which is tapping. I brought her in, and because I've been doing tapping with her, and it's like, we have to have kind of this arsenal of tools, because if you don't deal with those feelings, if you don't have a way to get that trauma out of your body, then you're going to be a lot more likely to just go back to those old crutches, because they're quick and easy and available, and they'll give you that little high, but then it's like, it's temporary. It's not going to do anything good for you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, it's just also just a matter of accepting like
Yeah.
this is life. Like,
Yes.
you're never going to get to a point where it's, you've wiped this all out and now you just feel good all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like this, the importance is the journey. Like there's no
It is.
destination.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself that too.
You always, and I talk with the people in my group about this today. We just had this conversation because I do 2 live streams a week in there, do a little Q&A. And I was like, this woman was just freaking out because she had all this stuff going on. And she's like, I'm not as happy as XYZ influencer. And she's like naming off people on Instagram and, the carnivore influencers and people who are influencers in the space. She's like, I'm just not as happy as them. I'm not as thin as them. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this for a second, because I don't care who you are, you're not going to put your hard moments out on the internet. People are showing you their highlight reel, and there are people who aren't telling you the truth, like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not being truthful. I've had people tell me after the fact that they were putting out, all this content on carnivore and they were eating carbs in the background. Like, so yeah. Oh yeah.
I continually am like shocked, surprised, and disheartened by what I've been seeing in the carnivore community.
Oh yeah.
So,
And people putting
yikes.
pictures of their food up and then throwing it away. Like I've had conversations with people behind the scenes like this, and
Oh,
I've like made a promise that I will not build my platform by knocking down someone else's and standing on them. So I'm not ever going to name names. I'm not ever going to do that. It's just not part of my message. But I am trying to convey a message to people that in your healing journey, sometimes you just need to put those blinders on and just do you, and don't compare yourself to some influencer just because they have all these followers and all this stuff. They may not be telling you the whole story. Someone who's like stick thin and, underweight and really skinny, they may have an eating disorder. They may be struggling with not eating and calorie restricting, but they're telling we don't really know what's going on. And so when you're trying to heal, you have to put on those blinders, and try to stick with people who are authentic and that they're not telling you everything's perfect all the time. But yeah, it's
yeah.
the Wild
Wow.
West out
I
there.
mean, man, you're you're like blowing my mind here. I mean, of course, like the internet is the internet, and
Yeah.
like people do what they do. I don't see, I mean, I wasn't expecting that here because there's not like a lot to be gained. Like if
Right.
you
That's what I'm
are,
saying. I'm
I know there's no money to be made in
like,
carnivore. Like I don't know, like what is the point of doing that? And I get so, but I get so disappointed, like with this whole honey and fruit
Oh,
and rice and
yes.
all of that, because, for people who are metabolically healthy, fine, go and do what
Yeah.
you want. It doesn't mean that those things are healthy. It just means that you're strong and resilient enough that those things aren't having a negative impact on you.
Yeah.
But like, that's not the population that's hanging out in the carnivore world. I mean,
No.
people, there's a small amount of athletes or, maybe like workout people, but I think people are coming here because they're hurting and,
Yeah.
something is wrong.
Yeah.
And so the people that, are in the sort of black carnivore circle are, struggling with diabetes, stroke, obesity, all of the signs of metabolic syndrome. And we know that metabolic syndrome leads to or increases your chances of getting cancer and leads to
Mhm.
death. So and so many people in my community are doing this because their parent died of
Yeah.
complications from diabetes, or they were starting to have complications of diabetes. So to tell that population, hey, honey is great, it's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't
Right.
even want to talk about whether this is
Right.
carnivore or not. This is not
Right.
helpful.
Right.
So I've, done a lot to try to push back against that. And I think that and I think that's entirely born like of well, one, just people are addicted to sugar.
Yes.
And we have been for, our whole generation, generations. I mean, since we, the first time we came across a honey hive, like,
Yeah.
or a beehive. So that's just a fact. And if we accept that and accept that, okay, you might eat these things and you might have some negative impacts and you're just going to accept the consequences, then fine, have at it. I don't have a problem with that. But, let's just not try to pretend that this is part of a healthy carnivore diet or that it is healthy for you, especially if you have any kind of metabolic dysfunction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's been 2020 has been crazy, and I know you had Judy on your show not too long ago. I've
Mhm.
actually been working behind the scenes with Judy. She did a SBA on me, and I'm doing gut healing protocol and a bunch of stuff with her. But her and I talked offline about and I'm sure she won't mind me saying because I know she's talked about it a lot on her platform. But just the whole, 2020 and people being so ridiculously stressed out and looking for that quick hit, and then kind of justifying it, saying, oh, metabolic flexibility and
Mhm.
repeat and this, that, and the other. I'm like, don't even get me started on repeat. But you know it's
Yeah.
it's dangerous for like the people in your community who are very sick and they don't need carbohydrates to heal. They need a high fat diet, they need to limit or stay off the carbs, and they need that support that you're providing. So I'm glad that you are providing that stability and putting out that information and helping these people and giving
Mhm.
them a place where it's like, no, you don't need the carbs to heal this, that, or the other. You may need a little more fat than someone else, but the carbs are not gonna, it's just a band-aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, that was why I decided to start the Thanksgiving to Christmas Carnivore
Mm,
Challenge. So, this is a group, and I know that people love to get into these really like tough challenges and
yeah.
really
Yeah.
draconian measures. And I was like, no, 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 I don't want to do that.
No.
Let's just do, let's just figure out like what is a good program that you can follow, and let's just follow that. So let's make a commitment to stay on track through this holiday season. And so I'm hoping that that provides some kind of a space so that as you're coming up against all of these temptations, that you have the tools and you have the community to deal with that. And so I'm trying to put out videos every day with different kinds
Wow.
of tips and exercises that you can do to help to help like get your head straight, because that's really
Yeah.
the most important part.
It is. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's the most important part, and we ignore it. We think we can just kind of like push through it and have willpower and have discipline, but that stuff is really finite. It's very finite, and to get through that acute withdrawal phase and to really stay strong, I mean, it takes a lot of support. So I love that you have that challenge and created that. I'm probably going to get this video out on Friday. So I'll make sure, because it's December 1st today as we're talking. So I'll
Mhm.
make sure I put that link below the video as well, in case people are still interested in looking into that, signing up for that for sure. So
Yeah, it's on
yeah.
Facebook and it's open to everyone, so
Oh,
anyone
awesome.
is welcome to join. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. I feel like we could like talk for at least another
I know,
like
right?
2 hours.
Yeah.
But we'll have to do it again. But where can everyone find you if they want to? And I'll make sure I link everything below that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm at Black Carnivore, and I have a YouTube channel, Black Carnivore. Yeah, those are the two channels that I am most comfortable dealing with. I am on some other social media platforms, but I have still not, fully like wrapped my head around how to use them. So, but those are the two best places to reach me, or you can certainly send an email. It's ede@blackcarnivore.com. And yeah, I'm happy to to answer questions and chat. I also do some coaching, and so if you go on my Instagram channel, I have there's like a link tree in there in my bio, and there's links to all the different things that I do and ways that you can connect with me or work with me. I love to just help people get started and get situated and have the correct information to start with carnivore. And you start strict, and then over time you kind of figure out what works for you and you personalize it for yourself. But if you're starting quite loose, it can be difficult to identify what's really going on and what really works for you and what doesn't. And I certainly have dragged my feet on getting rid of some things. But recently, I guess this was about 5 or 6 weeks ago now, I quit coffee and all
Hmm.
herbs and spices. So just salt is all I use. And I can't believe it made such a big difference. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I
That's good.
I personally just am not, plants and me just do not mix.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's good to know that. And then to get to this place where you can actually do it and not keep using it as a crutch and really just experience what it's like to be without those things. So that's
Hmm.
very cool.
And it's not bad. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Salt on meat, like, and cooked.
Oh, I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
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 People ask me all the time, well, what seasonings do you use? I'm like, not.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't use it, just salt. That's it. Like I don't use pepper. I don't use anything. Like just salt. So
Yeah.
it can be done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming on, and I will put all your links below. And we'll definitely have to do this again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I love that you love to check out the live stream. We do try
Yes.
to keep it, fun and friendly, and just like a place to hang out. And, so I'm definitely going to keep doing that. I'm switching up the
Awesome.
format a little bit because I like to highlight members of the
Mhm.
Black Carnivore community who are experiencing healing. That was always like the goal of the podcast, was to put up these stories and help people see someone that looks like them who is
Yes.
having success. And so what I'm starting to do now is take those episodes and premiere them on Tuesday nights,
Right.
so that there's a live chat while we all watch the first go round of the interview together. And then on Thursdays, we're going to have the live chat with me and Arian or other people. Hopefully Deborah will be back soon. She's just been going through like, a ton of stuff at work and everything, but hopefully she'll be back soon too. And, we will continue to mix that up. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. I
Yeah. It's
love going
awesome.
live. I do.
Yeah, and I told we're talking before. I'll literally have my phone and then just like pop in an earbud. And if my husband's late at the gym and I'm just by myself, I literally will listen to your live streams and I won't even comment, or I'm just like hanging out, because it's like hanging out with some friends. That is the
Yeah.
coolest thing. You're just hanging out with friends, listen to conversation. And I just love that you do that. And so I'll encourage everyone again to subscribe to your channel so you can hang out on the live streams. And it's just a great
Hmm.
place to go for community and for support.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the support.
Thank you.